All right, so welcome everybody to LinkedIn Hump Day Hangouts. For all you new people here, we have two goals. Goal number one, we want people to be empowered to learn how to use LinkedIn. I'm a big fan of you learning how to think. I hate it when people tell people what to think. So I want people to learn how to think. And then goal number two is I want you to be excited to just get out there and have fun and go for it. And you're not going to break things, right? Well, one rule is no trolling, being a jerk, that general kind of thing. All right, so we talked about this a little bit in the pre-hangout banter, but just one last opportunity for all you live people. Is there anything that you want to bring up other than the two topics that were in the email? Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure. All right, so let me share my screen.
No, I'm looking forward to learning more about this newsletter thing that you speak of.
Yes, it was definitely it's very interesting. So really quick, I'm going to do the company page thing first because that is something that everybody is going to eventually have access to. So let's see. Jer obviously has access to company pages. Tracy, have you created? You're in the
No,
process, right?
I'm
Totally
in the
cool.
process.
Don't beat yourself up. Not trying to pick on you. Just curious to see if you had the features all. And then if you folks on mute, if you want to throw in the chat, if you do have access to a company page, just let me know. Okay, so, hey, we've got Dave jumped on. Hey, Dave, really quick, just because I just started sharing my screen, we're going to talk about two things here for sure, and then anything live that you want. We're going to go over the new ability it's more like a reintroduce ability for company pages to invite their first degree connections to follow them, and then some of the whys, is it worth it, that kind of thing. And then we're going to talk about the thing that I just saw like on Monday for the first time, LinkedIn newsletters. So here, I'm going to do that, and then Dave, if you have anything that you want to bring up, that's totally fine because live people are priority. Okay, so for the company pages, so I'm just going to go to the company page. A little bit of backstory here. So, this is probably earlier this year-ish. This feature rolled out, and a bunch of people were excited. And I got a bunch of company page invites, the ability to invite connections to follow, and then LinkedIn ghosted it. They took it away, which is more rare. I've seen many times where it's a very slow rollout, but I haven't seen very many times where LinkedIn just straight up does a slow rollout and then removes it. And then so when they reintroduced it, I was quite surprised. So the way it works is you just go to your company page, just super straightforward. Admin tools, invite connections, and then you can choose up to 50. And I'm not going to do all 50 because I don't want to bore you all. So you can go like this and just select, or maybe you can do this. Let's see, is Dave Morris? There you go. And I'm going to invite just those 5 as an example. And then you can send up to 50. When you send 50, you'll get a little notification here that says you've reached the max. So you can only invite first degree connections. You can only do 50 per day. You know what? One thing I have not tested, I just realized this, is if you have multiple company admins, I'm assuming that every admin can invite up to 50 of their own connections. But I haven't actually tested that yet. That kind of just came to mind. So you can
So
invite 50. Yeah.
I do have my pages started. And I think it's interesting because the invite connections to follow is locked until you complete a certain amount of data on the company.
Oh, really? Do you see that? Would you be willing to share your screen?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Let me pop out here.
I'll let you drive.
Okay. Where's my share?
So while you're doing that, real quick, Carolyn says that she does have a company page, but without the ability to invite connections to follow. So Carolyn, probably that's going to be coming. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Sorry. So it should be coming. Everyone's going to be getting this feature. So let's see. Oh, there it is. There's the lock. You need a description and a logo. All right.
No.
Cool.
As
So
an interesting thing.
So you need 4 things to be able to have it unlocked, as long as you are having received the feature: industry, company size, description, and logo. No posts required. There you go. Cool. That's good to know.
Okay.
Tracy, thank you, Tracy.
Sure thing.
Okay, cool. Dave, do you have a company page? You can even give a thumbs up. Do you have the ability to invite connections to follow? You do. Okay, cool. So here's a question: is, does it matter? Does it matter? What's the value for company page followers? And so here, let me do this, because I've kind of um, had back and forth thoughts on this for a while, and I'm still kind of back and forth, but part of it's just my own personal bias. So let's just go back 6 months. So like right here, so bottom line is, oh, you know what? I am not sharing my screen, am I? Hang on 1 second. You're just so polite. You're like, oh, we're just gonna let them go. Just gonna let them go. Can't see anything. 1 second. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the follower metrics. Okay, so company page followers are just really hard to get. The question that I want to get to is it worth having a lot of followers? But this spike here, I think it's worth mentioning. I first started seeing this in September, where if you go into your notifications, you'll see respond as your business page. Have you been seeing a lot of companies commenting as that? And what you'll notice up here in the URL is it goes to the post URL / actor company ID, and then your company your company ID up there. And then if you go and comment, it's as your company page instead of your personal page. So I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, LinkedIn's wanting businesses, company pages, to grow their following. And of course, their end game is they want to monetize. They want people to do paid advertising. And if there's subpar excitement on page followers, no one's going to be advertising, or at least it's going to be a lot smaller market. It's going to be advertising. So it's like, oh, they're making intentional moves for that. And then they reintroduced so I did that, engaged, and I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. You get some followers, but it took a lot of work. It took a lot of work to get great comments, clever, good material, all industry relevant, and still people are not going to be very motivated to take the initiative to follow through and say, oh, that looks like a company page. Oh, I should click that. Oh, I should push to follow. It's just so many hoops to jump through. It's so much work that I gave up, and you can see it went down. Anyways, so that is like, oh, that's fun. Yep, not worth it. Down. And then just probably about a week ago, I saw the invite feature, and so you can see it going back up. And I'll tell you, as far as like for me as a user, it requires way less work because I'm just clicking invite, and for like I feel like it's for like Jer and I, we can be a little bit more. We can get away with who we're inviting, because doing LinkedIn, it's like everyone's on LinkedIn. Who doesn't want to at least learn something about the platform? But if outside of that, you might want to be more selective, because people are like, why would I follow a roofing company? Why would I follow a flooring company? That doesn't matter to me at all. So just blasting through and inviting everyone is probably not best practice. Let me just go back to page here.
But I received an invite from you to follow, and I immediately recognized, oh, that's Isaac's brand. Yeah, I'll follow his page happily. Why was I not already?
And if I did like a car wash, you might be like, maybe I'll throw him a bone because he's nice, but I really don't care, right? Let's be honest.
I'm also really liberal with supporting friends' businesses.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And so
you're generous. That's
I'm generous.
Yeah.
And so if I know you, if we've done business, if we've worked together, and you want me to follow or engage with your company and you're actively doing so, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. That you're very, very kind. And I think it's important to remember that most people don't care about most businesses. and to be considerate as the page admin who you invite, whether it's I genuinely know these connections like you just described, or I genuinely know that these connections will care about what this page is about. You know, I think that's very important. Uh, any thoughts or comments on that? I can just tell Jared wants to say something.
Now, also with this, it's an extra opportunity to let people know your brand and what you're doing. But also here you have to be careful who you invite and if you attract the right people also. Because it can also be upsetting if you go through a whole list of one company and invite everybody and one person is hating you, so and then you're excluding the whole company for yourself. So you have to think through what your objective is with inviting people and do not do it randomly.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, great insight, Jer. 100% agree. I think a big thing that we should talk about too is, what does what's the real value as far as money in the bank? What's the real value for company page followers? Because I hear a lot of people say, and I would tend to agree, like if just share it on your personal page and it'll go farther and it'll reach more people. And I feel like that's been true. But I will say that for for myself and the people I've heard that make those comments, they're smaller companies, and I think once you've reached I mean, think maybe let's exaggerate to the opposite end of the spectrum and say, like Apple. Okay, if Apple needs to do a news release, LinkedIn is going to be a great place to do that. And if they have a lot of followers, it's going to go farther. So you can see the value there in an exaggerated way. Apple wants to hire like a regional manager. You've got a lot of followers. They can say that, and they don't have to pay for a posting. It can go farther. So I think there are big PR, HR benefits as your company grows to make sure that your followers grow in tandem, and you'll see less benefits when you're smaller. That's just my 2 cents. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's really valuable anytime that you can um, help your employees be ambassadors. And so I
Yes.
see company page being an opportunity. One of the companies locally that does this really well is Henderson Engineering. So all of their employees are trained as ambassadors for the brand. And so when
Mhm.
the company posts something, they all go out and share it. And so you end up with this really visible company brand because they generated one post on their company page,
Yep.
but then all of their employees follow it. So they go out and they share it. You get this huge organic reach. So I
Yes.
think that it has immense value when you talk about, these consortiums and pods and groups of people that, whether by employee employer status or by community, are sharing and posting.
I totally agree. And I had watched a product release video. I think it was for Sales Nav that LinkedIn did, and they were talking about the some of the showcase your services for the service providers. They're talking about the some of the new integrations with Sales Nav for Elevate. And Elevate is like something that you pay for. It's really expensive. That it's like reminding employees of a company to share content like you just described without having to rely on some like extension or whatever. But one of the things that they kind of just dropped in there as a stat is they said that most company pages have about 10% of the quantity of followers as their employees on average. So if your average employee has 2,000 connections, average company page for that employer is going to be like 200, right? 200, 2,000. So I thought that was interesting. And then so having they were just saying the importance of what you just said, Tracy, of because that's a real bottleneck, have your employees be active about sharing your stuff. And then from there, it's a matter of what kind of content are you creating? Does anybody care? Who's seeing it? Your normal marketing 101 stuff. But for sure, for sure. Having your employees do that is going to make it go farther. Any other thoughts on that? It's pretty straightforward as far as the invite thing.
Yeah.
Is
I
there any
think
way to
the
use that
company
to get
page
beyond
is
first degree
really-
connections?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, Dave, did you say any way to invite anyone other than first degree?
Yeah, or get the How do you get beyond first degree connections?
You cannot.
That's the
My assumption there, like what we were talking about just a couple minutes ago, is if you own the page and there's another page admin, they might have connections that you're not connected to, and so they would technically be second, third degree connection. So that might be something that you could do, but you personally, you can't. Yep, good question. Jared, what were you saying?
Yeah, I think that the company page is really great to tell the company story. And when you have your company page out there, you are, as a business owner, are in control of the company page. And all the LinkedIn profiles are personal property, and you're not in control of the personal property. So you're not in control of the stories your employees or personnel that's going to work for you is going to bring out. And the company page is the one and only thing you can control completely. So you can bring out the company story, the company DNA, and what you want to advocate to the people. And you can train your people, but you cannot tell them what to do. And with the company page, you have complete control. And the funny thing is that what you said, that it's about 10% what a person has on a company page on followers. That's again proving that LinkedIn is a real personal people-to-people platform, and not really business to business.
Yeah, that's really good insight, Jer. I completely agree. Yeah, and I think that they're thinking too, like, hey, we need to be a profitable business. That's an observed stat. We need company pages. Well, it's probably more like this. Take a step back. The conversation at the table probably went, how can we make more money? We need to get people excited about company pages so that they'll spend money advertising those company pages. How can we encourage people to be excited about company pages? Because you can't pay to promote a personal post. So that, I mean, the whole world there is not monetizable. If that's even a word, monetizable.
Yeah. Otherwise it is now.
Carolyn asked in the chat, how do you know the original creator doesn't have it? Carolyn, I'm assuming you're talking about, like, if there are multiple page admins, would the person that created the page have the ability to invite first degree connections? I'm not 100% sure, because this is newer for me too, because I just got this. My assumption would be that it's based on the company page, not the user, but that's totally a guess. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. We'd have to find somebody that has lots of page admins and kind of poke around, which I don't have access to right here live. But that's a good question that I would really be interested in looking at. And eventually, that's more of like a transition question actually too, because eventually everyone will just have it. So it's not like being rolled out to a few select. It'll go to everybody. That's a good question though. All right. Anybody else? Anything on that? We can see. I see a new face there down in the corner. We've got Mukesh. Do you want to? Any questions before we switch out of the company pages and talk about the LinkedIn newsletter? All right. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything in the chat there. Carolyn. Oh, I might be saying your name wrong. Sorry if I am. Ratis has the option as an admin, not the original creator of the page. So maybe it is then by member, not by company page. And again, that's transitional. Everybody will eventually be able to, as long as it's an admin. Right. It wasn't the original creator. Got it. Okay, cool. So if there's nothing else on that, then let's jump over and talk about LinkedIn newsletters. Yeah? Okay, cool. Let me do this. I'm just going to hop right over to this tab here. You guys see this right here, newsletters? So this is what I saw earlier this week, and I was like, what is that? And so I did some digging, and I was just a little slow to the bus. It's not brand new to everybody like yesterday. So a few people by invite were put into this test group, and then I just started seeing this a couple days ago. So I was like, what is a LinkedIn newsletter? So what I'll do is I'll kind of just bump through some of the documentation, and I'm going to show you a newsletter that I subscribe to just to see what it looks like, and then we can talk about maybe some of the differences between what LinkedIn calls a LinkedIn newsletter and what we think of when we hear newsletter, when you just get those one-off emails. And I actually received an email of a newsletter right before the Hangout started, so I can show you that too. All right, so fun stuff. So this is where you'll see the invitation to follow a newsletter. So newsletters on LinkedIn, I mean, I don't want to go through all this stuff. You can just Google it, newsletter on LinkedIn FAQ, and read through this on your own time. Just a couple thoughts here is, let's see here. How do I view which newsletter I'm subscribed to? You can't. I thought that was kind of funny. Let's see. So what happens is, it's like, remember LinkedIn Pulse was a big deal? And then you would publish an article, and then everyone got notified, and it was like amazing and all the rage, and so everyone was doing Pulse articles. And then the notification stopped, and then you started sharing the Pulse article in the newsfeed, and then it's a link, so it doesn't go anywhere. It's like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? We're chasing our tail. And so it seems like LinkedIn values content on their platform, and what they're doing then is Pulse kind of got renamed to articles, LinkedIn articles, and now so there's a few people, it's by invite only, so you cannot apply. It's by invitation only. Can create a newsletter, and it's like a category almost. Like you can create an article, and it can be an article, or you can create an article and say it's part of my newsletter. So you can create a newsletter, write an article, and then that article is in that newsletter. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So I don't have the access to create a newsletter. So I'm kind of just relying on the documentation. So newsletters work with articles. It's by invite only. And let's see here. So this is what an article that's part of a newsletter is going to look like. So I'm actually going to unsubscribe. So they've got like their banner there. That's the name of the newsletter, not the person. And you know what? Just really quick, let's go to Carolyn's. Oh, there's a Carolyn in the chat. It's not the same Carolyn, is it? Because that would just make me cry, because that'd be hilarious. So if we go to Carolyn, we can't see, like, there's articles here, but there's no big, hey, I have a newsletter, which I thought was interesting. And then you can go here. So if you do click her article, like you see articles, you can see these are, it looks like a normal article. It doesn't say, at least right now, that these are all newsletter. So if you click one of the articles, you'll see though that this is a newsletter. There's the logo for the newsletter. There's the title. There's the description. It's weekly. Here's how many people have subscribed to it. Ooh, that looks clickable. Let's see what happens. Oh, shut up. I haven't done that yet.
That's a nice list.
It is interesting. So you can maybe get an idea for who. Jeez, are you serious? I'm freaking out live. Wow, that is fascinating. So, that's interesting. That is really interesting.
Subscribers you can mine.
Yeah, I wonder how far you can scroll down. Wow, that is very interesting. I hadn't seen that yet. So you can, so there's this is about the newsletter. If you scroll down to the bottom, so you see here there's a video. I'm mentioning that because I'm going to show you the email in a second. There's a video published by, and then you can see, let's see, I think at the very bottom here, there's another sort of line with the newsletter branding. So if I push, I'm going to move this thing over here. You might not see that. Subscribe, and there's a little notification down here. You will be notified when there is a new article in this newsletter. And so let's go to notifications. So there's two notifications that I'm seeing. Let's see here. So new from Caroline in Working Together 2020. Flexible work will no longer be a woman's issue. So I click that, and then I'm taken to, there it is. And before the Hangout just started, I was thinking, based off of the notification, that this is it. That's the extent of the notification. But I got an email. Let me just quick share that with you because I was pretty surprised to see that. One moment. All right, sharing my actual email there. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is what it looks like. So newsletter on LinkedIn, working together by Caroline. I can click her profile there. Title, there's that guy. There you go. This is like their kind of boilerplate. View media in original article. So that's why I was saying, like, there's the video on the article, but it's not in the newsletter. And then from there, it's kind of the same format as you'd see on the LinkedIn article, minus
Wow.
the video, minus the videos. Yeah, I did not expect to see that. So I was very surprised. I can unsubscribe.
Mm-hmm.
I can join the conversation. So there's a call to action there to join the comments. And let's see. Yeah. So this is, so kind of pulling back a step, I feel like this is more for high quality publishers who continually produce high quality content where the following makes sense. And the material that they're sending out is like, meets whatever their unique business objections are. But yeah, it goes out, create an article, associate it with your newsletter, goes out to subscribers by email, and then they get a notification. I think it's also worth saying what Tracy said in a comment earlier in the week, that the scary thing here is that you're totally renting your audience from LinkedIn and relying on LinkedIn. So the moment that LinkedIn says, we're going to sunset this feature, this gal's whatever many subscribers to this material, it could be over. And that's a big liability. Now, she could be taking the initiative because she can view the subscribers. She can take the initiative to say, hey, let's connect. I see you're following my newsletter. And then get their email and have them opt in like that. That might be a safer route, even though it might take more work. But it's an option. But also very potentially risky, or a lot of liabilities if you're relying on that one thing there. So there we have it. Anybody, any thoughts, comments on there?
Yeah, the only thought I have is that LinkedIn is really putting a strategy out there to keep people inside of LinkedIn and not go outside of LinkedIn. And the worry I have with this feature is that they will make it a paid feature like InMail, and that you have to pay by subscriber eventually.
It's totally, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
It's totally, it's a possibility. I'm wondering how many people are going to get access to that. I wonder if it's going to, like the LinkedIn influencers, little blue in, that's been around for a long time, and it's still by invite only. And so I'm curious if they'll kind of do that same thing where there's a who's who and you need to know somebody, or somebody's looking for high quality publishers to be given access to that, to protect everyone from being invited to a million newsletters that are garbage that no one cares about. So I am curious to see what happens with that. Very curious to see. Any other thoughts on that?
So for newsletters, LinkedIn sort of has to tap you to do a newsletter. I mean, you have articles out there, and they reach that out. So if you're doing boutique content in a small pond, that's one of the avenues where they could say, hey, this is pretty good content. We want to boost that.
That's a great point, Dave. I wonder if you could position yourself as someone worth approaching to do exactly what you just said. I'm guessing they'd look for high quality historical content, no violation of terms and conditions, and then a large following base, right? Yeah, that's a good point. Ratis says, I can see this being a good jumping off point to collect subscribers. You can later funnel to an actual email list if they start pushing that feature organically, it is. Yeah, I agree. You know, there's also like with the being a pulse format, I feel like you can't really do a salesy newsletter. You know, you could, but it would not really fit the vibe, and you can't like do your call to action button. There's no click tracking on what buttons they clicked to go to your, you know, product page or whatever. It's definitely kind of built to be informational in nature, which is probably why they call it a newsletter.
Well, and like Jared was saying, just keeping you in LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They don't want you going other places.
Yeah. And I hope I don't want to get in hot water. If I ever get this feature, I am absolutely going to approach every subscriber and ask them if they want to opt into my stuff off LinkedIn. You know, like, why wouldn't you? It's too risky to not. So
Wouldn't that be one of the articles you'd publish every week, like a little blurb at the bottom? You know, hey, if you really like this content, you can get it direct without going through LinkedIn. Click here.
Yeah, that's a really good question or point, Dave. I wonder if part of agreeing to the newsletter is, I wonder if they have certain guidelines where you can't violate that because of their main objective, keeping people on LinkedIn. That's a great point, and I would not be surprised if there are guidelines there. For example, LinkedIn Live. Everybody does not have access to LinkedIn Live. And if you do, part of the terms are you are not supposed to give advice on how to use LinkedIn and stuff. Isn't that bananas? I think Tracy, I feel like I saw Kevin Kwok mention that. He's in KC here, where he was, I thought, unless I'm remembering wrong, I thought he said that they were doing LinkedIn Live and just like putting good stuff out there about LinkedIn, and they're like, yeah, we didn't realize it, but we were accidentally breaking the rules. So am I remembering that right?
You are remembering correctly.
Okay.
Yes, which seems like the most bizarre. Like, wouldn't you want the people who are advocating for your platform leveraging all of the resources you've given them?
Yeah.
I don't understand the motivation behind that one.
They're probably just not wanting to accidentally make it seem like someone like that is like an actual brand representative.
Well, and I guess on that point, I can say they are really protective over like the LinkedIn local usages.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's some very specific rules about how you can use the logo, the brand. You can't use their logo for a LinkedIn local event. So as you advertise for a LinkedIn local hangout, meetup, anything, you can't actually use the LinkedIn logo with Box. And because it's not a LinkedIn event, it's not endorsed by them, it's not organized by them, and they don't want to be responsible for whatever you're doing, saying, or happens in that event. And so they are actually very picky about all of that creation.
It makes total sense. And, you know, compared to like Facebook and Google, I think LinkedIn has mostly stayed out of hot water so far. You know, I haven't seen a big news thing about them getting in trouble. So I think that's very important for them as a professional community and platform, and trust is such a big deal. I bet they're really what's the word where like you preemptive about problem solving those kinds of issues.
I think that has to do with parent company.
Microsoft? Possibly. I also don't hear Microsoft in the news very often about getting into hot water either. So maybe they just have better lawyers. Yeah, that's really interesting. And now I'm sitting here thinking, I totally have the LinkedIn logo on my profile banner. I'll have to reread the logo guidelines. That's really interesting, Tracy. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Any final thoughts here? We're about 40 minutes in, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Any final thoughts, questions before we call it a day? All right. Well, let me just make sure that there's something in the chat here. Ratis, Microsoft probably has some experience. They can use for staying out of hot water. Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everybody for your time. I had a blast. It was great seeing you all. Any thing for next week, send it my way so we can talk about it, because I really appreciate and value that. So we'll see y'all later. Bye.
Right there.